I gotta get this blade hand sanded to 1500 grit. I have 3 really important tips for hand sanding that aren't in a particular order. One of them is use really high quality sandpaper. Something that has nice even grit on it. Because some cheap sandpaper can have like, you'll buy 600 grit and it's got some like 220 grits pieces mixed in on there. The second tip I have is to use lots of lighting. I like this lighting right here because I can move it around and kind of get it just right to where I can see the previous grit scratch lines. So something movable really helps me. My third tip is to not overuse any bit of your sandpaper. Sandpaper is never worth your time to get the full use out of it. I'm gonna say only get like 50% use out of the sandpaper and then rip it off and use the next fresh section, or put a new piece on, however you do that. Keep your sandpaper nice and fresh and cutting sharp, and it'll save a lot of time, and it'll save you lots of grief and just aches and pains from all that extra sanding trying to get all the use out of the sandpaper. And it'll just make the whole hand sanding process more enjoyable. And if hand sanding is more enjoyable, you're more likely to do it and do it better. Wait, that might have been a 4th tip. So to go along with tip 3, using the sandpaper just like 50% of the way and then trashing it. It's a brand new piece of paper there. Do a little bit of sanding. Oh, it's still cutting, but not as good as it was. It's probably got 40, 50% life left. Flip it over and use some brand new fresh section. Do a little sanding until it starts to just not cut very crisp. Tear it off, do another piece. And that'll save you a lot of time and even more sanity. Sometimes sanity is a more important commodity than money or time, sometimes. It's like a couple hours later and I got the whole blade to 600 grit. Now it's time to go up to 1500 grit. At least I'm gonna try to jump from 600 to 1500. I've done it before, but if it's too much work, I'll go to 1000 and then 1500. I also have some of this diamond coated 3M sanding film that someone sent in for me to try. And this should be about a 1200 grit, so I'm gonna try it out on here first and see if it works. The 600 grit didn't sand aggressively enough for me, but the thing about it is it lasts like forever. Like the grit just doesn't wear off, but it just didn't seem like it was aggressive enough. But I'm gonna try this finer one and see how it works on here. That actually worked pretty good. I don't know that I would say it worked better though. Might try it some more. I feel like it cuts very good. Like for a long time, it just doesn't cut aggressively. I mean, I'd flip it over and like rip off a piece, but it still seems like it's cutting, just not super fast. Trying a little 1500 grit just to compare against that that diamond coated film. It's kind of hard to tell without doing a good side-by-side comparison. I don't have any 1200 grit sandpaper, so this is probably the closest thing I got. Well, 1000's closer, but I don't want to go that coarse, so it's the closest thing that I'm willing to compare it with. So again, this seemed to work really well. It lasted a long time, but it just doesn't cut very aggressively, so I'll keep trying it out on different things, and I'm sure I'll find a really good use for it. That end use may be for when I go to do stone handles. This may be the perfect thing for polishing that stone since it's got diamond on it. But for doing a blade, it just seems a little bit slow. Like I just sanded on one spot basically and almost sanded an area as big as a large hunter and with one little tiny spot of the paper, whereas it would take like a strip or two of this probably. So the durability of it is very impressive. Just wish it cut a little faster. It's the only thing.
Hi guys, while Kyle's hand sanding, I figured we could answer a YouTube comment that we just got that is actually very relevant to what we're doing right now. So, Kyle, one of the question is, why can't I go higher than 1000 grit?
Oh, there you are. I thought you were behind me with the camera.
You can
go higher than 1000 grit. I am currently going to 1500 grit on this Bowie, but you can go to whatever grit you want. You can take 2000, 2500, 3000, 35 million thousands. It's probably not necessary to go past like 2000, 2500. I don't know, haven't really messed with it too much. I normally go to 1000 grit, and I've just recently started going to 1500 grit because I feel like it gives a little bit finer finish after the etch. You can also go lower grits. It just depends on the caliber of knife you're making. If you're making something that's going to be a lot more user grade where you need to make it faster and don't have time to spend all that time hand sanding, then you can go with 600 grit, 320, 220 even. It just depends on what you're making.
So this next question goes along with kind of what you're saying about the lower grits. He wants to know, why shouldn't you go lower than 1000 grit? So what happens if you go lower than 1000?
You can get by with 600 grit really good on a lot of Damascus patterns. I'm gonna say the coarser the Damascus, the higher the grit needs to be. So if you're doing like a 600 grit finish, that needs to be on a pretty fine Damascus because the lower grits can show up more in your dark areas. So if it's a really coarse pattern, you'll kind of see more scratches and stuff going on in the dark like steel it etches. But you can certainly go lower with lower grits. The lower you go, the more scratches you're gonna see. But that might work great for the knife you're making. It just depends on the amount of time and how fancy the knife is gonna be. Really gauges how fine of a grit you take it to before and after etching. But I used to do a lot of 600 grit finishes. I've been doing 1000 for a number of years, but now I've just started doing 1500 grit, and I'm really liking the subtle difference that gives me.
All right, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this little segment where we answer one of your questions in our video.
Got the blade all cleaned up. I'll wash it off really good and get it etching using some Dawn dish soap and a sponge. If you don't get the blade nice and clean, then you could have little spots that don't etch very evenly. You want to have it nice and clean so the oil doesn't keep the acid from etching anywhere weird. I'm gonna keep it in here for 35 hours. Not 36, not 34, 35 specifically, exactly. Actually, if you keep it in there that long, you'd probably pull this out and there would just be like this thread of like rust, because it'd all be gone. I'm gonna keep it in here another few seconds, then I'm gonna pull it out and look at it. I'll put it back in and maybe keep it in for 5 to 10 minutes. Neutralize it, take it out to my sanding station, sand it really good with 2500 grit paper, clean it, put it back in, do that for another 10 minutes, and then I'll do a couple cycles of that. So total etch time will be in between 30 and 60 minutes total etch time. That's a really broad range. It'll probably come out right around 30 minutes though. 2 minutes later. So this is the first time pulling it out. It's birdie. Oh man. Yeah, I'll put it back in and leave it in there for about 5 minutes. Do our first sanding cycle. 7 minutes later. Take this blade out. Rinse it off. Neutralize it a little bit with some Windex, and then go out and sand on it with some 2500 grit sandpaper. She's looking mighty fine. Oh man, this is gonna look so good. Coffee darkened up. I'm neutralizing the blade because it's got all that fresh ferric chloride on there. And that ferric chloride could keep etching on one side of the blade while I'm sanding on the other side. And I don't want it to do that. So neutralizing kills the acid, so it'll stop etching. And what it is ammonia does it, or also trisodium phosphate works well. A bunch of baking soda mixed in with water does it really well. I have a tank with that out there. So there's ammonia in the Windex, and that's what's neutralizing the acid. I don't like to do that for my official neutralization at the very end. I like to soak it in a container of highly concentrated baking soda water for like 5, 10, 15 minutes, something like that. This will work for these little sanding operations I'm going to do in between etching just fine. And the spray bottle's a little more handy than the dip tank thing. So this is kind of a newer process that I've modified recently. What I used to do in between each etching cycle, I would clean these oxides off just over the sink, holding the blade in one hand and like sanding it with the other. But I recently started bringing it out here in between each process because I can really put the force down on it and really get all the oxides out a lot better. and I've noticed it actually makes the whole etching process work better, and it looks better, and takes more time and more effort, but it looks really, really nice in the end. The reason you want to clean the oxides out in between etching is because if you get too many oxides in there, it just kind of stops the etching. The etching will just not go any deeper. But if you clean them out and keep it sanded really nice every few minutes, you know, every 5 to 10 minutes, it just makes it etch really nice and even and deep. And it makes the 1084 that's etching have a nice smooth texture on it instead of like really rough or something. Back in the etch we go. It's been about 10 minutes later, plus or minus a little bit. Take it out. Rinse, neutralize, sand, repeat. Just got done with another hand sanding cycle on this and cleaned it up, put it back in for the final etch. I'm probably gonna do another 5 or 10 minutes or so, which should make the total time come out to be about 25 to 30 minutes. It's about 10 minutes later. Taking the blade out for what should be the final time. It's looking nice. I'm gonna go through all that sanding that I did before, only with 3000 grit, and then I'm gonna buff the blade a little bit, and we're gonna get it in the coffee to darken it up. Instant coffee, highly concentrated.
Fun fact for you guys, check it out.
This Bowie blade is made from the same Damascus as the last dagger I built. I was able to make a big billet, which was just enough steel for that 18-inch dagger and this 16.5-inch Bowie, or 17. I actually don't know how long this is. It's somewhere in that range. Got it all buffed up, super shiny. That'll give us the chatoyance. And now we need to get the contrast by putting it in the instant coffee mix. Just need to get it really, really clean first, get all this buffing compound off of it. I use Nescafe 8-ounce container of it to half gallon of water. And I would tell you how long it'll take, but I don't know. Anywhere between 4 and 24 hours probably. Into the coffee mixture. It's not deep enough. Add some water. I'll mix it up a little bit, make sure there's not just some water separated from the coffee sitting on top, because I just dumped in some water. Smells good. Should I taste it? Probably not. There was a little mold on top. I'm using some used coffee. See if it works. If it doesn't, I'll have to mix up a new batch of fresh coffee. I cannot get the coffee darkening to come out the way I want. I'm using some used coffee mixture though, used instant coffee, and I'm wondering if that's having something to do with it. It's probably 2 or 3 weeks old, been used once or twice. Could just be this blade isn't accepting it very well. Need new coffee? Josh, mission for you. Get new coffee, because if we don't have any more, need to mix up a fresh brand new batch and get that blade soaking in it now. I am on a very important mission for Kyle. I'll explain why here in a second. Okay, Kyle's been using used coffee for the coffee darkening for the Bowie. That's not working out. So we're gonna try some new coffee. So I'm here at Dollar General. I'm gonna pick him up some new coffee. Let's go. We got the goods. Let's go back home. All right, we made it. Let's give Kyle his goodies. Here you go. Coffee. I'm about ready to rinse this off and then go polish the 15 and 20 with a sunshine cloth again and see how it looks after it's been soaking in the fresh coffee for a couple hours. It's looking so much better now. I think we need fresh coffee pretty much every time you do it, fresh batch. I was having a trouble area, I just wasn't getting it to stick very well. It kept rubbing off right in this area, and it's coming out way better. I might soak it a little bit longer, because because there's a little bit of a lighter area here still, but it's sticking on there really well. I'm able to scrub on it pretty hard with this abrasive cloth. I'm using this sunshine cloth with micro abrasives in it to polish the 15 and 20 up, because the 15 and 20 has like this yellow haze on it from the coffee. So the dark stuff, when it goes right, sticks really well to the 1084, and enough to where this can't rub it off. And then this cleans up the 15 and 20 and gives that super ultra high contrast shiny look that I'm going for. It's night and day difference between this one and the last time I did it. Another couple hours and I think it's gonna be perfect. Looking good, son. I just got done polishing all the off colors and yellow off the 15 and 20, and it looks absolutely beautiful. Super happy with the way this looks now. It turns out all I needed to make it look good was lots of time, lots of patience, and a fresh batch of instant coffee. That made all the difference right there. Using the used batch, even though it was only like 2 weeks old, it just wasn't sticking very good or anything, and it was getting real faded in some areas. So the fresh coffee, big difference. The next thing I'm gonna do is mask this blade off and get it sharpened to the sharpener. I really love the way the Bowie came out. The finish on the blade, the finish on the fittings, the gold inlay, doing all the little dots in the gold. I've never done that before, so that was a brand new challenge, and I love the way it came out, having the larger dots going down to like smaller dots. So guys, on this Bowie, I wanna know what your favorite part of it is. So comment below what your favorite thing on the Bowie is. My favorite thing is actually something that Josh pointed out just earlier. If you don't know yet, Josh is my brother who does all the videoing and editing for YouTube. He pointed out that he loved the middle spacer, that middle piece of metal in the handle, because it kind of looks like when you have like a barbed wire fence wrapped around a tree and the tree starts growing around it and swells around it. It's kind of like the ivory is like the tree, and it's kind of like expanding around the metal in the same way. So he pointed that out, and that actually became my favorite thing on the Bowie, was kind of that middle spacer transition to the ivory. So let me know what your favorite thing is down below. I want to thank you guys so much. You guys are amazing. I think in one of the last videos, I commented on how happy and excited I was that we hit 10,000 subscribers rather, on YouTube. It's only been like a week or something, and we're about ready to hit 20,000. We're at like 18 something. So thank you guys so much. We're all super excited here with all the excitement and emails and messages and just sheer energy that you guys are providing with what we're doing on YouTube and Instagram and everything. So thank you guys so much for that. So the next project we're working on is our first ever course, full-blown in-depth course on how to make a 15-inch carbon steel Western Bowie. And right here on YouTube, we're gonna be following along with the course and giving you some tasty nuggets and tidbits from the course as we're working on it. So stick around for that. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye. Cut time.
Don't drop it, Kyle. Don't cut yourself.
Kind of effortless, actually.
That was with the back edge there.
Oh man. I cut a nice clean part off the top with this edge, and then I did it with the back edge too.
Nice.
Off the same tube.
Nice.
Don't use that even as a blooper. You're not allowed to use that even as a blooper. Okay?
It's gross.
Okay?
Okay.
I'll make you take the video down. I'll delete our channel. I have access to it.
Kyle, I found your pet bug.
Yeah. What kind of bug
Looks like he's doing your trash for you.